Mounjaro. All right, this is exciting. This is like a trending thing right now. Look at me getting in there with all the kids and the trends. But first, I am not your doctor. We're talking about a drug here, and you should never take anything because anybody, Thor lookalike or not, tells you to take it or not take it. Always talk to your doctor first, and you must always learn to be your own best advocate. Nobody's gonna watch out for you quite like you. That being said, Mounjaro. It's now being prescribed by doctors for various reasons. We'll talk about those reasons in a moment. And I'm even seeing spas advertise it as fat loss shots. I feel like I'm thinking like, come on, ladies, come get your fat loss shots, got your fat loss shots, like they're hot dogs at baseball games. I'm not entirely comfortable with that because for one thing, those hot dogs at baseball games, that can't be real meat, can it? Al, is that real meat? Can you pull it up? So I'm hearing about it in the media all the time. I'm hearing doctors, RNs, even pharmacists talk about it a lot. I'm hearing celebrities are using this stuff. And because I'm interested in health and wellness in general, kind of in the know a little bit, people are actually asking me about this stuff as well. The questions I wanted to have answered when I got curious about it was, for starters, what is it? More importantly, how does it work? What are the disclosed side effects that we're hearing about? And maybe even just as important, what's kind of the anecdotal stuff that people are saying who are already taking Mounjaro? What are they experiencing? The other thing that I find very important to me, and maybe you as well, to talk about, what are the other implications of something like this, like a fat loss drug like this? What are the implications we may not be thinking of immediately? And that's coming again from more of a health and wellness perspective when we're talking about fat loss. We already know being obese is unhealthy, having to do with mortality rates, things like that. That has nothing to do with body positivity, totally different thing. So what does this trending drug have the ability to do to our lifestyle and habits? So again, I'm not your doctor. Those guys get all that schooling when I refuse to cut my hair or frankly take out my earrings. But I am going to talk about it a bit in layman's terms for you. And even if you're not considering taking it, you may be like me and find this kind of thing interesting. I do find it interesting. So what is Mounjaro? Mounjaro. Costanza. Mounjaro is the brand name of the drug tirzepatide. It's a relatively new FDA-approved drug that gets injected once a week in a range of 2.5 milligrams to 15 milligrams. It's raised in 2.5 milligram increments. It's of course injected under the skin. Your doctor is going to be the one to decide whether or not you go up a dose. Usually based on what I'm reading, you're going to be at a dose for about 4 weeks. Mounjaro works in the same way as hormones called incretins, which are secreted naturally in your body. They respond to food. Mounjaro specifically mimics two digestive hormones in your body, GIP and GLP-1. These hormones are responsible for the incretin effect, which is basically how your body responds to oral sugar or glucose and how your body produces insulin as a result of that. Basically, you eat some gummy bears, the incretins get to work, and hopefully they do a good job if we're lucky. But for people with type 2 diabetes, the incretin response is either impaired or it's completely not working. The incretin effect has been affected. And that's where Mounjaro comes into play. Mounjaro stimulates the GIP and GLP-1 receptors, causing your body to produce more insulin, which in turn helps your body bring down and break down the blood glucose. Insulin helps move glucose from the blood into cells, where it can be used for energy, exercising or whatever, or stored for later use. Insulin also helps the liver and muscles absorb glucose, and it converts excess glucose into glycogen. Glycogen is something we've talked about in other episodes as well. That's your muscle's preferred way of storing glucose, which the body can use for energy later. So basically, Mounjaro, or tirzepatide, by helping your body create more insulin, helps regulate blood sugar more effectively. In terms of losing body fat, we know blood sugar variations are very important. Now, another way Mounjaro helps people lose fat is it regulates the production of glucagon. Glucagon girl. Glucagon is a hormone the body produces that takes the body's stored glucose in the form of glycogen and turns it back into glucose, releasing it back into the blood. Basically, less glucagon means less glucose being released back into the blood, which means lower blood sugar levels. Insulin sensitivity is also increased with Mounjaro. That's something we talked about a lot last week in our apple cider vinegar segment. Check that out if you haven't already. So the more sensitive your body is to insulin, the less you need to lower blood sugar. That's the main problem again with type 2 diabetes. The body isn't making enough insulin, or in some cases it is, it's just not responding well enough to it. You're leaving too much glucose in the blood, which can cause a range of problems from heart attack to stroke, kidney problems, even cancer. So, though type 2 diabetes can be managed, often effectively today, that's something if you don't have to have, you don't want to have. So, we can see in this way how a drug like Mounjaro would help someone with type 2 diabetes in creating more insulin and lowering blood sugar. We also know this helps someone vicariously with fat loss because without those blood sugar spikes and drops, there's a huge decrease in cravings as well. I mean, cravings are a huge way that people gain fat. It's very easy to be eating terrifically all week, sticking to your plan, but then you're driving by the Olive Garden and you know that even though the chicken and shrimp carbonara is 1,600 calories, it just doesn't matter because they're going to treat you like family. And they're also going to give you an enormous amount of breadsticks for free. Even I am not giving you breadsticks for free, and I'm great. So there goes your macros for the week, Fargan Bastages. I'm just kidding. I actually haven't eaten in Olive Garden in like 20 years, but anything carbonara sounds amazing to me. I remember eating that in Italy. That was like, holy cow, that was good. However, I have digressed again. Another way Mounjaro helps you lose fat is it delays gastric emptying. Yeah, kind of what it sounds like. It kind of slows things down. I mean, basically the food you eat is staying in you longer. A little gross, but you know, the things we'll do to have abs like Ryan Gosling, I guess. So because of the gastric emptying slowing down, you're already going to want to be speaking with your doctor if you're going to consider taking a drug like this. But if you're having digestive issues already, even more so, that could potentially make those issues a lot worse. Same deal with any medications you might already be taking that affect insulin. This also may affect insulin. You know, check that out first. Don't just take it blindly. This is also a good time to mention Mounjaro is only approved by the FDA to treat type 2 diabetes. It is not approved as of the time I'm recording this to treat weight loss. The drug tirzepatide, however, which Mounjaro is, under another name called Zepbound, is FDA approved for fat loss. I'm not even going to try and wrap my head around that one, or I'm going to have another Rick James digging his feet into Eddie Murphy's couch moment. Yeah, I remember doing that. But the bottom line is someone is making a lot of money selling these fat loss McFlurries under different names. Oh, capitalism. But it can't all be great, right? I mean, what are the side effects of Mounjaro? Costanza. Well, to name a few that I read about, it looks like it may affect birth control effectiveness, and it also may affect a fetus as well. So if you're trying to have a baby, or if you're not trying to have a baby, you may not want to take Mounjaro. There are also concerns with Mounjaro and thyroid cancer. If that runs in your family, tread carefully, be aware. Now, other than the gastric issues, which we talked about a little bit, I also have heard about obviously pain in the injection site, swelling, allergies, and of course, we have to consider if we're not eating enough, there's all kinds of malnourishment issues. Anything we're doing, we really want to make sure it's benefiting our overall health if we can, not just our appearance. A really interesting topic is Mounjaro versus Ozempic. We hear a lot about Ozempic today too. I actually remember hearing about Ozempic first before I even knew what Mounjaro was. It was like, I had heard like, how is Oprah losing all this weight? It must be Ozempic. I don't know if it actually was or not. You get a free fat loss injection. You get a free fat loss injection. Somewhere there is someone running that promotion right now. You're welcome. So it does look like Mounjaro is more effective than Ozempic, at least in the fat loss category. The conclusion seems to be because Mounjaro works on the GIP and GLP-1 receptors, and drugs like Ozempic seem to only work on the GLP-1 receptors. This, by doing more, may be why Mounjaro seems to be helping people lose more weight. Maybe one drug is better for you for other reasons when it comes to fat loss. I don't know. I have heard, though, from other people I know who've taken these drugs that Mounjaro seems to be better than Ozempic. I'm not sure. I was also asked last week, is it true that people who are using these drugs are really only losing muscle mass? That's a very interesting question. I have two answers that immediately come to mind. One, I don't know, maybe. I mean, it could. It does make a lot of sense because, two, Anytime you go into a caloric deficit, meaning you're eating less than your maintenance calories, check out that episode, and you're not eating enough protein in the already fewer calories you are eating, because heck, you just got a fat loss shot in the ass. I mean, who needs to weight train? The weight's just gonna fall off, right? Well, maybe not. That could be a scenario where your body is actually holding on to fat and losing a lot of muscle mass. This is when your body has, dare I say crudely, what's called a starvation mode, where a prolonged malnourished body will hold on to body fat and actually burn these guys, the muscles. If this was happening with Mounjaro, how would we counter it? What would we do? And again, I don't know how and if this drug itself influences muscle mass, but the first thing I'd say that would probably help is lift heavy weights, weight train, strength train. Next, make sure you're eating enough in general, even as you are losing weight. And lastly, make sure you're getting enough protein. We're going to be talking about that more a little bit later. So this is the cool one that I really wanted to talk about today. And this is what inspired me to make this episode is what are the effects of Mounjaro and drugs like it on society? How we look at fat loss, and even more importantly, what habits may it encourage? What are my concerns? So first off, there's going to be a difference between people who are using it for diabetes type 2 versus people who are using it strictly for fat loss. If you're using it for type 2 diabetes and a side effect seems to be you're losing weight and you're obese, you're dealing with that sort of thing, hats off to you. That sounds terrific, at least to me. On the surface, that sounds good. Your doctor knows better than I. Excellent. It also helps as well that tirzepatide, when prescribed as a type 2 diabetes medication under the name Mounjaro, is often covered by health insurance. So for people who are on a budget, again, great for you. Now, for the people who are using it exclusively for fat loss, first off, I want to say I absolutely think there are people in the world who need extra help, especially when it comes to fat loss. Be it for physical or mental reasons, I absolutely feel at times medications can be the right choice. They can be wonderful for you if you can find one that you and your doctor agree on, and it seems like a good path forward. I've dealt with really crummy anxiety over the years, and at times I've used medications to help me. So I'm certainly not going to begrudge anyone the chance to feel better on their own terms. That would be Charlie calling the kettle buff. But I do have two concerns. First, the fat loss people will have to get the FDA-approved version of tirzepatide under the name Zepbound, which currently, at the time of this recording, is not cheap. I think it's like well over $1,000 a month. So right there's a financial implication to taking this. Fine. My second concern, the bigger concern, is when these medications are prescribed without any lifestyle changes. It's just like, here's the drug, the doctor's got other people to see, good luck. And what I mean by not making lifestyle changes is maybe you're not exercising the way you should be, or you're not making nutritional changes you should be. You're maybe not even prioritizing sleep, which is so important. Maybe you're just eating less of whatever you want because you're not as hungry and you're losing weight. And this is the scenario that I hope people don't fall into. You've been trying to lose weight forever. I feel for you. I actually know what that's like. You're someone who eats relatively healthy most of the time. Sometimes, you fall off the wagon, the chicken and shrimp carbonara, whatever. It's been really tough for you, and sometimes it's probably more mentally tough thinking that you may never ever lose the weight. That's got to be just as bad as the obesity itself. And now this drug comes along, and it's so promising. You're not as hungry. You don't have the same cravings. You're feeling fuller, more satiated longer. You're losing weight. Big win, right? Well, maybe. Stay with me. Now that you're not eating as much, you can eat some of the foods that you really couldn't have eaten prior while still losing some weight. Now these foods that maybe aren't nutritionally healthy are slipping into your diet. You're losing weight still because you're eating less, but now before you know it, you've developed some habits where you're eating things that normally you would not be eating. And yeah, you're not getting enough protein now and you're losing some muscle, but all right, hey, who cares? I'm still losing weight, right? My jeans are looser, the number on the scale keeps going down. Well, what happens if this drug becomes too expensive? Or you have a financial emergency or a situation where you can't afford the drug? What happens if it's so in demand people can't get it? Or there's a recall? Or there's this other crazy side effect we don't know about yet? I don't know. Now you've developed some poor lifestyle habits, and this drug that's kept your blood sugar and your cravings and your appetite in check, it's not there anymore. That's a recipe for nutritional disaster. You see what I did there? So I urge anyone, when you make the decision with your doctor, if you do, whether or not this is the right medication or the wrong medication for you, please also consider your overall lifestyle and your overall health as well. I would implore you to do that. You don't want to just be putting a band-aid on something like that. And I also get the impression this is not the kind of medication for someone who just has like 5 pounds to lose. So consider that as well. There's usually no free rides as far as I'm concerned. And if it sounds too good to be true, it might be. So, those are my thoughts on Mounjaro. It sounds like a promising, exciting new drug. I certainly hope it helps a lot of people with type 2 diabetes and suffering with obesity. I hope it does wonderful things for them. Please let me know your thoughts about it. Have you taken it? Do you know anyone that's taken it? Let me know your experiences. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.